Hello, this is Morale Bernard with the continuation of Secret Adversary. And last words were that, and why not, asked Boris. Because you'd kill the goose that lays the golden eggs, replied Tommy quietly. And by the way, please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe and please share. Thank you. Let me continue. There was a momentary pause. It seemed as though Tommy's persistent assurance was at last conquering. They were no longer completely sure of themselves. The man in the shabby clothes stared at Tommy searchingly. "He's bluffing you, Boris," he said quietly. Tommy hated him. Had the man seen through him? The German, with an effort, turned roughly to Tommy. "What do you mean?" "What do you think I mean?" parred Tommy, searching desperately in his own mind. Suddenly Boris stepped forward and shook his fist in Tommy's face. "Speak, you swine of an Englishman! Speak!" "Oh, don't get so excited, my good fellow," said Tommy calmly. "That's the worst of you foreigners. You can't keep calm. Now, I ask you, do I look as though I thought there were the least chance of your killing me?" He looked confidently round, and was glad they could not hear the persistent beating of his heart which gave the lie to his words. "No," admitted Boris at last suddenly. "You do not." Thank God, he's not a mind reader, thought Tommy. Aloud, he pursued his advantage. "And why am I so confident?" "Because I know something that puts me in a position to propose a bargain." "A bargain?" The bearded man took him up sharply. "Yes, a bargain. My life and liberty against..." He paused. "Against what?" The group pressed forward. You could have heard a pin drop. Slowly, Tommy spoke. "The papers that Danvers brought over from America in the Lusitania." The effect of his words was electrical. Everyone was on his feet. The German waved them back. He leaned over Tommy, his face purple with excitement. "Himmel, you have got them?" With magnificent calm, Tommy shook his head. "You know where they are?" persisted the German. Again, Tommy shook his head. "Not in the least." Then, angry and baffled, the words failed them. Tommy looked round. He saw anger and bewilderment on every face, but his calm assurance had done its work. No one doubted but that something lay behind his words. "I don't know where the papers are, but I believe that I can find them. I have a theory." "Bosh!" Tommy raised his hand and silenced the clamorous of disgust. "I call it a theory, but I'm pretty sure of my facts. Facts that are known to no one but myself. In any case, what do you lose? If I can produce the papers, you give me my life and liberty in exchange. Is it a bargain?" "And if we refuse?" said the German quietly. Tommy lay back on the couch. "The 29th, he said thoughtfully, "is less than a fortnight ahead." For a moment the German hesitated. Then he made a sign to Conrad. "Take him into the other room." For 5 minutes, Tommy sat on the bed in the dingy room next door. His heart was beating violently. He had risked all on this throw. How would they decide? And all the while that this agonized questioning went on within him, he talked flippantly to Conrad, enraging the cross-grained doorkeeper to the point of homicidal mania. At last, the door opened, and the German called imperiously to Conrad to return. "Let's hope the judge hasn't put his black cap on," remarked Tommy frivolously. "That's right, Conrad. March me in. The prisoner is at the bar, gentlemen." The German was seated once more behind the table. He motioned to Tommy to sit down opposite to him. "We accept," he said harshly. "On terms. The paper must be delivered to us before you go free." "Idiot," said Tommy, amiable. "How do you think I can look for them if you keep me tied by the leg here?" "What do you expect then?" "I must have liberty to go about the business in my own way." The German laughed. "Do you think we are little children to let you walk out of here leaving us a pretty story full of promises?" "No," said Tommy thoughtfully. "Though infinitely simpler for me, I did not really think you would agree to that plan." "Very well. We must arrange a compromise. How would it be if you attached little Conrad here to my person? He's a faithful fellow and very ready with the fist." "We prefer," said the German coldly, "that you should remain here. One of our number will carry out your instructions minutely. If the operations are complicated, he will return to you with a report, and you can instruct him further." "You're tying my hands," complained Tommy. "It's a very delicate affair, and the other fellow will muff it up as likely as not, and then where shall I be? I don't believe one of you has got an ounce of tact." The German rapped the table. "Those are our terms. Otherwise, death." Tommy leaned back wearily. "I like your style, Kurt, but attractive. So be it, then. But one thing is essential. I must see the girl." "What girl?" "Jane Finn, of course." The other looked at him curiously for some minutes. Then he said slowly, and as though choosing his words with care, "Do you not know that she can tell you nothing?" Tommy's heart beat a little faster. Would he succeeded in coming face to face with the girl he was seeking? "I shall not ask her to tell me anything," he said quietly. "Not in so many words, that is." "Then why see her?" Tommy paused. "To watch her face when I ask her one question," he replied at last. Again, there was a look in the German eyes that Tommy did not quite understand. "She will not be able to answer your question." "That does not matter. I shall have seen her face when I ask it." "And you think that will tell you anything?" He gave a short, disagreeable laugh. More than ever, Tommy felt that there was a factor somewhere that he did not understand. The German looked at him searchingly. "I wonder whether, after all, you know as much as we think," he said softly. Tommy felt his ascendancy less sure than a moment before. His hold had slipped a little. But he was puzzled. What had he said wrong? He spoke out on the impulse of the moment. There may be things that you know which I do not. I've not pretended to be aware of all the details of your show, but equally, I've got something up my sleeve that you don't know about. And that's where I mean to score. Danvers was a darned clever fellow. He broke off as if he had said too much, but the German's face had lightened a little. Danvers, he murmured. I see. He paused a minute, then waved to Conrad. Take him away, upstairs, you know. Wait a minute, said Tommy. What about the girl? That may perhaps be arranged. It must be. We will see about it. Only one person can decide that. Who? Asked Tommy, but he knew the answer. Mr. Brown. Shall I see him? Perhaps. Come, said Conrad harshly. Tommy rose obediently. Outside the door, his jailer motioned to him to mount the stairs. He himself followed close behind. On the floor above Conrad opened a door and Tommy passed into a small room. Conrad lit a hissing gas burner and went out. Tommy heard the sound of the key being turned in the lock. He set to work to examine his prison. It was a smaller room than the one downstairs, and there was something peculiarly airless about the atmosphere of it. Then he realized that there was no window. He walked round it. The walls were filthily dirty as everywhere else. 4 pictures hung crookedly on the wall, representing scenes from Faust. Margaret with a box of jewels, the church scene, Sibyl and his flowers, and Faust, and Mephotius. The latter brought Tommy's mind back to Mr. Brown again. In this sealed and closed chamber, with its close-fitting heavy door, he felt cut off from the world, and the sinister power of the arch-criminal seemed more real. Shout as he would, no one could ever hear him. The place was a living tomb. With an effort, Tommy pulled himself together. He sank onto the bed and gave himself up to reflection. His head ached badly. Also, he was hungry. The silence of the place was dispiriting. Anyway, said Tommy, trying to cheer himself, I shall see the chief, the mysterious Mr. Brown. And with a bit of luck in bluffing, I shall see the mysterious Jane Finn also. After that, Tommy was forced to admit the prospect looked dreary. The troubles of the future, however, soon faded before the troubles of the present, and of these the most immediate and pressing was that of hunger. Tommy had a healthy and vigorous appetite. The steak and chips partaken of for lunch seemed now to belong to another decade. He regretfully recognized the fact that he would not make a success of a hunger strike. He prowled aimlessly about his prison. Once or twice he discarded dignity and pounded on the door. But nobody answered the summons. Hang it all, said Tommy indignantly. They can't mean to starve me to death. A newborn fear passed through his mind that this might perhaps be one of those pretty ways of making a prisoner speak, which had been attributed to Boris. But on reflection, he dismissed the idea. It's that sour-faced brute Conrad, he decided. That's a fellow I shall enjoy getting even with one of these days. This is just a bit of spite on his part. I'm certain of it. Further meditations induced in him the feeling that it would be extremely pleasant to bring something down with a whack on Conrad's egg-shaped head. Tommy stroked his own hair tenderly and gave himself up to the pleasures of imagination. Finally, a bright idea flashed across his brain. Why not convert imagination into reality? Conrad was undoubtedly the tenant of the house. The others, with the impossible exception of the bearded German, merely used it as a rendezvous. Therefore, why not wait in ambush for Conrad behind the door, and when he entered, bring down a chair or one of the decrepit pictures smartly onto his head? One would, of course, be careful not to hit too hard. And then, simply walk out. If he met anyone on the way down, well, Tommy brightened at the thought of an encounter with his fist. Such an affair was infinitely more in his line than the verbal encounter of this afternoon. Intoxicated by his plan, Tommy gently unhooked the picture of the Devil and the Faust and settled himself in position. His hopes were high. The plan seemed to him simple but excellent. Time went on, but Conrad did not appear. Night and day were the same in this prison room, but Tommy's wrist watch, which enjoyed a certain degree of accuracy, informed him that it was 9 o'clock in the evening. Tommy reflected gloomily that if supper did not arrive soon, it would be a question of waiting for breakfast. At 10 o'clock, hope deserted him, and he flung himself on the bed to seek consolation in sleep. In 5 minutes, his woes were forgotten. The sound of the key turning in the lock awoke him from his slumbers. Not belonging to the type of hero who is famous for awakening in full possession of his faculties, Tommy merely blinked at the ceiling and wondered vaguely where he was. Then he remembered and looked at his watch. It was 8 o'clock. It's either early morning, tea, or breakfast, deduced the young man, and pray God it's the latter. The door swung open. Too late. Tommy remembered his scheme of obliterating the unproposingly Conrad. A moment later he was glad that he had, for it was not Conrad who entered, but a girl. She carried a tray, which she set down on the table. In the feeble light of the gas burner, Tommy blinked at her. He decided at once that she was one of the most beautiful girls he had ever seen. Her hair was a full, rich brown, with sudden glints of gold in it, as though they were imprisoned sunbeams struggling in its depths. There was a wild rose quality about her face. Her eyes, set wide apart, were hazel. A golden hazel that again recalled a memory of sunbeams. A delirious thought shot through Tommy's mind. "Are you Jane Finn?" he asked breathlessly. The girl shook her head wonderingly. "My name is Annette, monsieur." She spoke in soft, broken English. "Oh," said Tommy, rather taken aback. "François," he hazarded. "Oui, monsieur. Monsieur parle français?" "Not for any length of time," said Tommy. "What's that, breakfast?" The girl nodded. Tommy dropped off the bed and came and inspected the contents of the tray. It consisted of a loaf, some margarine, and a jug of coffee. The living is not equal to the Ritz, he observed with a sigh. But for what we are at last about to receive, the Lord has made me truly thankful. Amen. He drew up a chair and the girl turned away to the door. Wait a sec, cried Tommy. There are lots of things I want to ask you, Annette. What are you doing in this house? Don't tell me you're Conrad's niece or daughter or anything, because I can't believe it. I do the service, monsieur. I'm not related to anybody. I see, said Tommy. You know what I asked you just now? Have you ever heard that name? I've heard people speak of Jane Finn, I think. You don't know where she is? Annette shook her head. She's not in this house, for instance. Oh, no, monsieur. I must go now. They will be waiting for me. She hurried out. The key turned in the lock. I wonder who they are, mused Tommy, as he continued to make inroads on the loaf. With a bit of luck, that girl might help me to get out of here. She doesn't look like one of the gang. At 1 o'clock, Annette reappeared with another tray, but this time Conrad accompanied her. Good morning, said Tommy amiably. You have not used pear soap, I see. Conrad growled threateningly. No light repartee, have you all been? There. We can't always have brains as well as beauty. What have we for lunch? Stew. How did I know? Elementary, my dear Watson. The smell of onions is unmistakable. Talk away, grunted the man. It's little enough time you'll have to talk in, maybe. The remark was unpleasant in its suggestion, but Tommy ignored it. He sat down at the table. Retire, Violet, he said, with a wave of his hand. Prat not to thy betters. That evening, Tommy sat on the bed and cogitated deeply. Would Conrad again accompany the girl? If he did not, should he risk trying to make an ally offer? He decided that he must leave no stone unturned. His position was desperate. At 8 o'clock, the familiar sound of the key turning made him spring to his feet. The girl was alone. Shut the door, he commanded. I want to speak to you. She obeyed. Look here, Annette. I want to help. I want you to help me get out of this. She shook her head. Impossible. There are 3 of them on the floor below. Oh. Tommy was secretly grateful for the information, but you would help me if you could. No, monsieur. Why not? The girl hesitated. I think they are my own people. You have spied upon them. They are quite right to keep you here. They're a bad lot, Annette. If you'll help me, I'll take you away from the lot of them, and you'd probably get a good whack of money. But the girl merely shook her head. I dare not, monsieur. I'm afraid of them. She turned away. Wouldn't you do anything to help another girl? Cried Tommy. She's about your age, too. Won't you save her from her clutches? You mean Jane Finn? Yes. It is her you came here to look for, yes? That's it. The girl looked at him, then passed her hand across her forehead. Jane Finn. Always I hear that name. It is familiar. Tommy came forward eagerly. You must know something about her. But the girl turned away abruptly. I know nothing, only the name. She walked towards the door. Suddenly she uttered a cry. Tommy stared. She had caught sight of the picture he had laid against the wall the night before. For a moment he caught a look of terror in her eyes. As inexplicably, it changed to relief. Then abruptly, she went out of the room. Tommy could make nothing of it. Did she fancy that he had meant to attack her with it? Surely not. He rehung the picture on the wall thoughtfully. 3 more days went by in dreary inaction. Tommy felt the strain telling on his nerves. He saw no one but Conrad and Annette, and the girl had become dumb. She spoke only in monosyllables. A kind of dark suspicion smouldered in her eyes. Tommy felt that if this solitary confinement went on much longer, he would go mad. He gathered from Conrad that they were waiting for orders from Mr. Brown. Perhaps, thought Tommy, he was abroad or away, and they were obliged to wait for his return. But the evening of the 3rd day brought a rude awakening. It was barely 7 o'clock when he heard the tramp of footsteps outside in the passage. In another minute the door was flung open. Conrad entered. With him was the evil-looking number 14. Tommy's heart sank at the sight of them. "Evening, Governor," said the man with a leer. "Got those ropes, mate?" The silent Conrad produced a length of fine cord. The next minute, number 14's hands, horribly dexterous, were winding the cord round his limbs, while Conrad held him down. "What the devil?" began Tommy. But the slow, speechless grin of the silent Conrad froze the words on his lips. Number 14 proceeded deftly with his task. In another minute, Tommy was a mere, helpless bundle. Then at last, Conrad spoke. "Thought you'd bluffed us, did you? With what you knew and what you didn't know? Bargained with us? And all the time it was bluff, bluff. You know, less than a kitten. But your number's up now, all right? You swine." Tommy lay silent. There was nothing to say. He had failed. Somehow or other, the omnipotent Mr. Brown had seen through his pretentiousness. Suddenly, a thought occurred to him. "A very good speech, Conrad," he said approvingly. "But wherefore the bonds and fetters? Why not let this kind gentleman here cut my throat without delay?" "Go on," said number 14 unexpectedly. "Think we're as green as you do in here, and have the police nosing round? Not half. We've ordered the carriage for your lordship tomorrow morning. But in the meantime, we're not taking any chances, see?" "Nothing," said Tommy, "could be plainer than your words, unless it was your face." "Stow it," said number 14. "With pleasure," replied Tommy. "You're making a sad mistake, but yours will be the loss." "You don't kid us that way again," said number 14. "Talking as though you were still at the bloomin' Ritz, are you?" Tommy made no reply. He was engaged in wondering how Mr. Brown had discovered his identity. He decided at tuppence, in throes of anxiety, had gone to the police, and that his disappearance having been made public, the gang had not been slow to put two and two together. The two men departed and the door slammed. Tommy was left to his meditations. They were not pleasant ones. Already his limbs felt cramped and stiff. He was utterly helpless, and he could see no hope anywhere. Join me. Join me for the next episode. Join me for the next video of Secret Adversary and find out if there's help waiting for dear Tommy. Join me for the next video. See you then. Bye.